Hello and welcome to Savor the Southwest. And I am here today to talk about making some pesto, some vegan pesto. Although you don't have to be vegan to enjoy it. I call it vegan pesto because it does not have in it the cheese that most pestos have. Most pestos use Parmesan cheese. Well, I can't have Parmesan cheese. It gives me migraines. I can't have any aged cheese. They tend to give me migraines. So, vegan pesto. So, went out and normally you don't break a whole giant branch off your basil bush, but I'm about to go on vacation, and this basil is not a southwestern basil. This is a sweet basil. It comes to us from the moister parts of Europe and actually Asia, into Europe, into the Southwest. Dang, I get so technical sometimes. Anyway, so sweet basil doesn't like our summers, and I'm just gonna, rather than hope that the plant person keeps the plant, or plant care person keeps them alive, I'm sparing them by harvesting the basil and making pesto out of it. And I'm going to throw this pesto in the freezer. Now, I made one batch so far and put it in a jar that is going to go in the freezer. And I just want to show you. Mine is a very kind of a drier pesto. And it's kind of like when you make cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving. Different people have different recipes. Some people like it really juicy. Some people like it really more cranberry. But freezer, okay? So this pesto today, vegan, no Parmesan in it. The other thing it doesn't have in it is garlic, because I cannot eat garlic. So you have to really listen to your body and learn what your body can tolerate and not tolerate. And people say, oh, I had this great pesto at your house, and I want you to try my pesto, and I can take like a little nibble. Ah, yes, the joys of a sensitive body. Now, my basil plant, he's getting a little wilty because I picked him a while ago. Now, you can go out in the garden and actually with scissors snip off these leaves. Now, you could get the leaves with the stems too, because we're going to put these in the food processor and get them all ground up. It doesn't matter, these little stems, right? It's going into my measuring cup. You want a cup of them. Now this is actually almost right, but I have this much basil left, so I'm going to push the envelope. Now, what do you do about leaves that look like this? They're kind of yellowy. They've got mechanical damage to them. It looks like they got blown around and rubbed against something. It's not insect chewing on it. Well, it's not bad. It's just scar tissue. And to tell the truth, if you eat meat, when you eat meat, you often eat scar tissue anyway. So whatever. I'm not that fussy. You can be fussy if you want to be. The USDA is super, super fussy. You know, you did that in a restaurant, they'd have your head. But see, again, it's just mechanical damage, and the leaf is actually getting older, so it may not be as flavorful. So maybe I shouldn't use it. I don't know. I'm also very thrifty. And as long as I like the flavor of it, I go ahead and use it. So you just, seriously, if you're out in the garden, let's grab my little scissors. You would be cutting these into your basket for harvest. And you would leave the younger leaves up on the top to grow big and then be harvested later. So by the end of the season, a normal basil plant is going to be a stalk with just a little tuft of leaves up on the top. But because, like I said, I'm going away, it's all going to go in the food processor. Now, I have followers who live off grid and don't use food processors. They chop up their basil the good old-fashioned way. Okay, so this is actually about a cup and maybe a third of basil. So, not pushing the envelope too much, but here's how you would do it. You could take a knife like this. It's an ulu from Alaska. And the nice thing about them is you can rock them back and forth. I don't know if I've got this low enough so you can see that. See, I'm just rocking this back and forth and it's chopping up my basil. And you want to chop it small enough that you can eat it without getting giant bites in your mouth. Now, if you don't have an ulu, just get a knife with a curved blade. See how the blade has a nice curve to it? And the reason for that is we're going to sit here and we're going to just rock it back and forth. It's a lot easier than sitting there going chop, 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 chop. Besides, your hand's in the way, right? By putting your hand on the point of the knife, it's out of the way. Because trust me, I've cut myself more than enough times in my life. So you could do that by hand, or you could go ahead and get yourself a Cuisinart. Excuse me, I'm supposed to call them a food processor, not use brand names. Besides, mine is a Moulinet. Okay, so we're going to use technically 1 cup of basil and 1/4 cup of walnuts. Now, we said already, okay, I can't have the cheese because it gives me migraines. I can't have the garlic because I'm allergic to it. And I can't have pine nuts, especially not the pine nuts from China. My body reacts very badly to them. So let's make it with walnuts. That's another fairly common way to make them. Now, the thing about the pine nuts from China, there are different species than our native southwestern pinyon pines. And a lot of people actually have sensitivities to them. So if you say, oh, I don't like pesto, I tried it once and I don't like it, try it this way. Because it might have been the pine nuts that you didn't really like the flavor of. Now, I'm going to put the rest of the walnuts in because that was the last of the bag. This is one of these where cooking, you push the envelope a little bit, and this is gonna come back to bite me when I add the olive oil. Now, olive oil here, 1/4 cup. 1/4 cup of walnuts, 1/4 cup of olive oil, cup of basil. This is a small batch. This is kind of what you would do if you were gonna serve it with the evening meal. Nice small batch, just put it out there in a prettier dish than this. And it is gonna change color, okay? Now, the olive oil I'm using is a nice high grade, 100% organic, unfiltered, extra virgin olive oil. And I really like the flavor of this. It's worth not buying cheap with olive oil, especially if you're gonna use it in something like this, where you're really going to have the flavor. So you really want a high quality olive oil. And it doesn't have to be olive oil. It could be any oil. If you don't like the flavor of olive oil, avocado oil is more often used for cooking because it's a high temperature oil, but you could use that in your pesto if you like that. We're using walnuts. You could use walnut oil. You could use almond oil. So it doesn't have to be olive oil. So 1/4 cup of oil. Let's say that. Now, the other things we're going to add are some lemon juice. Now, fresh lemon juice, same as oil and vinegar concept. You're going to put the lemon juice in there to help sort of take the oiliness away from the oil. It's kind of like oil and vinegar go well as a salad dressing. Well, same thing here. The other thing that the lemon juice will help do is this citric acid and actually ascorbic acid or vitamin C in the lemon juice are going to help keep the basil from losing its color. So we're going to get back to that. First thing we're going to do is pulse the walnuts a little bit to get them smaller. And you can, again, put them on the cutting board and chop, chop. There. very old machine gets a little sticky sometimes. So took my walnuts and chopped them into little bits. Okay, those are good. I like to do the hard things first and then move to the hard, meaning really hard for the processor, and move to the softer basil. And we're going to pulse that a couple times, throwing them all in here. Now, incidentally, some of you have seen my post where the cat's wandering across the counter, because he does that. And we've learned that, I've learned this, that it's better to train the cats that if they're going to be somewhere, first of all, not while I'm cooking, and second of all, he walks across the counter and he's supposed to get in his little kitty box that's over there. But before I cook, it's sitting right here all the time, is cleaner, and I spray down my cutting board. Okay, so yes, it probably wouldn't pass health code, but it works for me. Okay, so I always clean before I cook, just to reassure anybody watching. So we are going to go ahead and pulse together now the walnuts and basil. Yeah. Okay. You don't need to hold it down. I just kind of do it. Now, I don't know if you can see this. Your basil is chopped up into, well, I can't really get one out there, but it's maybe 1/8 of an inch squares, very small, tiny, something where it's going to blend together in your mouth, and you don't really have to crunch, chew on it, right? It's not like a lettuce in a salad. So that looks good. So the next things we're going to add is a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, and then our lemon juice. And last but not least is the oil. So 1/4 cup of walnuts, 1/4 cup of oil, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now, I measured it for the video, but normally I would just take 2 pinches, because a pinch is about 1/8 of a teaspoon. So 1, 2, see? Measuring spoons are merely a suggestion when you've cooked for a long time. You just kind of, some of this. Now, 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper, because we didn't do the garlic, and it's nice to have another flavor in your pesto. 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper, for me, would be too much. So we want a pinch. We want about 1/8 of a teaspoon. So there we go. By the way, that was coarse pepper. We use the fine ground pepper for on the kitchen or on the table when you eat, but the coarse pepper is kind of better for cooking with. So coarse pepper, and depends on your flavor. I like about a teaspoon of lemon juice. Oh, and yeah, it was a little over, and there's a seed in there. I don't like it too lemony. I think it, especially if I'm using Mrs. Basil's famous lemon basil. Mrs. Burns, I said that wrong. Mrs. Burns, famous lemon basil from Native Seed Search. Oh, that stuff is delightful, and it has a lemony flavor to it. So you only need like a touch of lemon. And last but not least, we're going to add the oil. Now you could just dump it in, but most cooking people say to drizzle it in, and I don't know why, but let's drizzle. Okay, so we're going to get this going, and we're going to drizzle this in. More. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's see how that came out. Ooh. It's looking really good. Oh, that's looking really yummy. I'm going to pull this spoon. Let's use a different spoon. It's moist. It's sticking together really well. Let's put it in my hand so you can see. It's got a nice texture to it. It's going to be, because of the walnuts, crunchy. I got the salt right. I could almost go a little bit more on the lemon juice, And that's the other thing about cooking is each batch is different. So you could do this time and time again, and you could be very precise about measuring. And in baking, you have to be precise because baking is another thing. But in cooking, like this, maybe the basil plant just happened to make more basil flavor that day. You tasted this and you said, you know, I think it needs a little more lemon juice. So put a little more in. Nothing wrong with that. That's the whole thing is, oh, that's enough. See, good thing I had a spoon there. Part of it is what you like to eat and not being absolutely rigidly precise. Cooking is an art and a little bit of a science. So we're adding the, you know, the lemon acidity with the oils. That's the science part of it. But then it has to please your palate. So I'm going to pulse that in. I'm going to say we're done. There we have it. Making some nice walnut pesto salad. And the other thing I'm going to do here is this is pesto. If you can, make it a half an hour at least before you serve your guests. Because this pesto has been sitting here with the oil, the older pesto, sitting there in the oil. And can you see that it's actually changed colors? Let's get that close to the camera. It's becoming darker, and the oils from the basil are seeping into the oil of the olive oil, and it's going to have a richer flavor than just straight out of the blender, processor. So if you can, it's kind of like stew. Basil gets richer the longer the flavors sit together and meld together. So there we have it. Pesto, presto, pesto. Thanks for watching Savor the Southwest.